My daughter's husband and his father threw her off their yacht into the Atlantic Ocean at midnight. She was 4 months pregnant. As I screamed into the darkness, watching her disappear into the black water, they laughed and said she was being dramatic. Then they turned the yacht around and headed back to shore, leaving her there. When the Coast Guard finally pulled her from the water 3 hours later, barely alive, I made one phone call to my older brother. I said only 4 words. Time to end them. Before I tell you what happened next, if you enjoy stories about justice and revenge, please subscribe to Gilded Vengeance and like this video. Let me know in the comments what state you're watching from. I'm curious to know. The evening started innocent enough. My daughter, Emily, and I were guests aboard the Whitmore family's luxury yacht, the Serafina, for what they called their annual autumn soiree. It was late September, and we were anchored off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. The air had that crisp New England bite to it, the kind that warns you winter isn't far behind. I'm Robert Sullivan, 65 years old, a retired architect who spent his career designing buildings, not navigating the treacherous waters of wealthy, powerful families. I'm a quiet man by nature. I raised Emily alone after my wife died when Emily was just 8. I taught her to be kind, to work hard, to trust people. I taught her wrong. Emily had married Marcus Whitmore 2 years earlier. He was a hedge fund manager, handsome in that polished, prep school way that wealthy families seem to breed. His father was Senator Charles Whitmore, a man whose face appeared regularly on news programs, always with that practiced smile and firm handshake. Power and money radiated from the Whitmores like heat from asphalt in summer. From the beginning, I didn't trust them. Call it a father's intuition, or maybe just the instinct of a man who'd spent decades reading blueprints and understanding that what looks solid on the surface can hide structural problems underneath. But Emily loved Marcus, or thought she did, and I held my tongue. What father wants to be the one who ruins his daughter's happiness? That night on the yacht, about 40 guests mingled on the deck, champagne glasses in hand, the sound of jazz floating from hidden speakers. Emily stood near the railing, wearing a navy dress that concealed her small baby bump. She'd told Marcus about the pregnancy just that morning. His reaction, she'd said, had been strange. Not happy, not angry, just cold, distant. I watched him now across the deck, deep in conversation with his father. They kept glancing at Emily, then looking away, their expressions unreadable. Something about their body language set off alarm bells in my head. I'd learned over the years to trust those instincts. Around 10 o'clock, most of the guests had moved below deck to the main salon, where dinner was being served. Emily excused herself to use the restroom. I was talking to an elderly couple about their summer home in Nantucket when I heard Marcus's voice cut through the evening air. "Emily, come here for a moment." I turned. Marcus and his father stood at the far end of the deck, near the stern railing. Emily walked toward them, smiling. Even from 20 feet away, I could see she was trying, always trying, to win their approval. "What is it?" she asked. Marcus leaned close to her, said something I couldn't hear. Emily's smile faltered. She shook her head, started to turn away. That's when Marcus grabbed her arm. His father stepped forward on her other side. I started moving toward them, my heart suddenly pounding. Something was wrong, very wrong. "Let go of me," Emily said, her voice rising. "What are you doing?" "Just teaching you not to trap a man with fake pregnancy news," Marcus said, loud enough now that I could hear. "You think I'm stupid? I know what you're trying to do." "It's not fake. I'm actually pregnant." Emily's voice was panicked now. "Marcus, stop." She tried to pull away, but he held firm. Senator Whitmore stepped behind her, blocking her escape. They had her cornered against the railing. I was running now, shouting, "Get away from her!" But I was too far. Too slow. A 65-year-old man trying to cross a yacht deck in dress shoes. Marcus looked at his father. Some silent communication passed between them. Then, in one swift motion, they both pushed. Emily went over the railing backward, her scream cutting off as she hit the water. The sound was wrong, too sharp, like she'd struck something hard before the water took her. I reached them in seconds, grabbed Marcus by his jacket. "What did you do? What did you do?" He shoved me back, I stumbled, caught myself against the railing, and looked down into the black water. Nothing. Just darkness and the sound of waves against the hull. "She'll swim to shore," Senator Whitmore said calmly, adjusting his cufflinks. "It's only half a mile. Teaches her a lesson about lying to get her hands on family money." "She's pregnant!" I screamed at them. "She can't swim in that water. It's 45 degrees. Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. Pregnant. Right. Next she'll claim the baby's mine and ask for child support. I've seen women like her before. I didn't think. I just moved. I tried to grab the life preserver mounted on the bulkhead, but Senator Whitmore stepped in front of me. "Mr. Sullivan, I suggest you calm down. This is a private family matter. Get out of my way." I shoved past him, grabbed the life preserver, and hurled it as far as I could into the darkness where Emily had fallen. It hit the water with a splash I couldn't even see. I looked over the railing, straining my eyes. The yacht's lights only illuminated about 20 feet of churning black water. Beyond that, nothing but darkness. "Emily!" I screamed. "Emily, can you hear me?" Silence. Just the slap of waves and the distant sound of jazz still playing from the speakers. I pulled out my phone, dialed 911, and told the dispatcher we had a person overboard. I gave them our coordinates, our location, everything I could think of. Marcus walked past me, heading below deck. "Dramatic, as always," he said to his father. "She's probably already climbing onto the shore, planning her next manipulation." I wanted to throw him overboard. I wanted to break his jaw, but I couldn't take my eyes off the water, couldn't stop scanning for any sign of my daughter. "Why didn't you jump in after her?" someone asked behind me. One of the guests had emerged from below, drawn by the commotion. I turned. It was Mrs. Ashford, the elderly woman I'd been talking to earlier. She looked horrified. "I can't swim well," I said, my voice breaking. "The water's too cold, too rough. If I go in, we'll both die." The Coast Guard said to stay put, keep watching, keep calling her name. But even as I said it, the guilt crushed down on me like a physical weight. My daughter was out there, drowning, and I was standing on this deck, doing nothing. 20 minutes passed, then 40. The Coast Guard arrived, searchlights sweeping the black water. I stood at the railing the entire time, calling Emily's name until my voice was gone. Marcus and Senator Whitmore had gone below deck, acting as though nothing had happened. I heard Marcus telling other guests that Emily had decided to take a swim and must have swum to shore. At the 2-hour mark, I heard one of the Coast Guard officers on his radio. "We've got something." I gripped the railing so hard my knuckles turned white. "Alive?" Another voice crackled back. Long pause. Too long. "Barely. Hypothermia. Head trauma. She's unconscious. We need a medevac now." They brought her up in a rescue basket. I barely recognized her. Her face was blue-gray, her lips purple. There was a gash on her forehead. Blood matted in her hair. She wasn't moving. "Is she breathing?" I asked the medic. "Barely. We need to move fast." They loaded her onto the Coast Guard vessel, and I started to follow. "Sir, we need you to stay here," one of the officers said. "We need statements. This is a crime scene now." "That's my daughter." "We know, sir. The helicopter will take her to Massachusetts General. You can meet her there. But right now, we need you to tell us exactly what happened." I looked at Emily's still form being carried away. Every instinct screamed at me to go with her. But the officer was right. If I left now, Marcus and his father would control the narrative. They'd make this disappear like it never happened. "All right," I said. "I'll tell you everything." I gave my statement to the Coast Guard. I told them exactly what I'd seen. Marcus and Senator Whitmore deliberately pushing Emily overboard. I told them about the pregnancy, about Marcus's accusation, about how they'd laughed. The young officer taking my statement looked uncomfortable. "Mr. Sullivan, you understand, we'll need to investigate this thoroughly. Senator Whitmore is, well, he's a senator. These accusations are serious. More serious than attempted murder? I'm just saying. This will be complicated." He was right. By the time I got to the hospital 3 hours later, lawyers had already arrived. Not my lawyers, theirs. 2 men in expensive suits stood in the ICU waiting room, talking in low voices with a hospital administrator. A doctor approached me. She was young, exhausted looking. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm Dr. Chen. Your daughter is stable but critical. She has severe hypothermia, a concussion, and she aspirated a significant amount of water. We're doing everything we can." "The baby?" She hesitated. "We don't know yet. It's too early to tell if the pregnancy is still viable. The next 48 hours are crucial." I sank into a chair. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching this happen to someone else. One of the lawyers approached me. "Mr. Sullivan, I'm James Kirkland, representing the Whitmore family. We're deeply concerned about Mrs. Whitmore's accident." "It wasn't an accident, and we want to assure you that Senator Whitmore and his son are cooperating fully with authorities. However, we would caution you against making inflammatory statements that could constitute defamation." "Get away from me." "Mr. Sullivan, I understand you're upset, but—" I stood up. "I'm not a violent man, never have been, but in that moment, if that lawyer had said one more word, I might have become one." He must have seen something in my eyes because he stepped back, nodded curtly, and retreated to his colleague. I sat back down and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from rage, a cold, quiet rage that had been building since I watched my daughter disappear into that black water. I scrolled through my contacts and found the name I was looking for. Thomas Sullivan. My older brother. I hadn't spoken to him in almost 2 years, not since a family argument about something so trivial I couldn't even remember what it was now. Thomas had spent 30 years with the FBI, most of it in their financial crimes division. He was a forensic accountant, the kind of investigator who could look at a spreadsheet and see the crimes hidden in the numbers. He'd put away corrupt politicians, mob bosses, corporate criminals. He'd retired 5 years ago to a small town in Vermont, but I knew he still had connections, still had skills. I hit dial. He answered on the third ring. "Robert?" His voice was cautious. We hadn't parted on good terms. "Tommy." I hadn't called him that since we were kids. "I need your help." Silence. Then, "What happened?" I told him. Everything. My voice stayed level, controlled, like I was describing a building design instead of my daughter's attempted murder. When I finished, there was a long pause. "These people," Thomas said finally. "You're talking about Senator Charles Whitmore." "Yes." "Robert. He's one of the most powerful men in Massachusetts, probably running for governor next year. He has connections in every agency, every courthouse. I know who he is, Tommy. I know what I'm asking." Another pause. I could almost hear him thinking, weighing the risks. "Where are you right now?" he asked. "Mass General, ICU waiting room. Stay there. Don't talk to any more lawyers. Don't talk to police unless I'm present. Don't talk to anyone. I'm leaving Vermont now. I'll be there in 3 hours." "Tommy, I'm not doing this for you, Robert. I'm doing it for Emily. That little girl sent me a birthday card last year, even though we weren't speaking. She didn't have to do that." My throat tightened. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. If what you told me is true, this is going to get ugly. The Whitmores will use every resource they have to bury this. Are you prepared for that?" I looked through the glass window at Emily's room, at the machines breathing for her, at the monitors tracking her fading vital signs. "Yes," I said. "I'm prepared." I stayed at the hospital all night. Emily remained unconscious, her condition listed as critical. Around 3 in the morning, a nurse told me the pregnancy had ended. The trauma, the hypothermia, the stress, it had been too much. My daughter had lost her baby. I sat in that plastic chair and felt something inside me break. Not crack. Break completely. Whatever mercy I might have felt, whatever impulse toward forgiveness, died in that moment. Thomas arrived just before dawn. He looked older than I remembered, his hair mostly gray now, lines deep around his eyes. But those eyes were still sharp, still taking in everything. He sat down next to me without a word. We sat in silence for several minutes. "Tell me again," he said finally. "Every detail. Don't leave anything out." So I did. This time I included things I hadn't told the Coast Guard, like how I'd seen Marcus and Senator Whitmore whispering together earlier in the evening, How they'd been watching Emily all night with expressions I couldn't read. How, when she'd told Marcus about the pregnancy that morning, he'd immediately called his father. Thomas listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long time. "Okay," he said, "here's what we're dealing with. Senator Whitmore has been in politics for 30 years. He's wealthy, connected, and very, very careful. If he did this, if he deliberately tried to harm Emily, he's done it before." "What do you mean?" "Men like him don't just suddenly decide to commit violence. There's always a pattern, a history. We need to find it." "How?" "I still have friends in the Bureau. And I know a few journalists who owe me favors. People who aren't afraid of going after powerful men." He looked at me. "But Robert, you need to understand something. If we do this, we're declaring war. The Whitmores will come after us with everything they have. Our finances, our reputations, maybe even our safety. Are you sure?" I thought about Emily lying in that hospital bed. I thought about my grandchild, who would never be born. I thought about Marcus laughing as my daughter drowned. "I'm sure." Thomas nodded slowly. "Then, here's what we're going to do. First, we don't react. We don't make accusations. We appear to believe their story, that it was an accident. We play nice." "I can't." "Yes, you can. Because while they think we're backing down, I'm going to dig. I'm going to find out everything about Charles Whitmore's past. Every business deal, every relationship, every skeleton in every closet. And when I'm done, we're going to destroy him." The next 3 days were torture. Emily remained in a medically induced coma while her body tried to recover. I sat by her bed, held her hand, and said nothing to anyone except doctors and nurses. Marcus visited once. He walked in with flowers, his lawyer hovering behind him, and started talking about how tragic this accident had been. I said nothing, just looked at him until he left. Senator Whitmore sent gifts, expensive fruit baskets, flowers, a card expressing his deepest sympathies for this unfortunate incident. I threw them all away. Meanwhile, Thomas was working. He called me every evening with updates, always brief, always careful about what he said on the phone. "I found something," he said on day 4. "Senator Whitmore's first wife. She died 20 years ago, fell down the stairs at their summer home in Nantucket. It was ruled an accident, and I tracked down the medical examiner who did the autopsy. He's retired now, living in Florida. I'm flying down tomorrow to talk to him. What do you think you'll find?" "I don't know yet, but I know someone who worked that case." He told me off the record that there were things about that death that never sat right with him. Bruises that didn't match the fall pattern. Timing that didn't add up. But Senator Whitmore had friends in the department. The case got closed fast. My hand tightened on the phone. "He's done this before." "Maybe. I'm going to find out." On day 6, Emily woke up. I was sitting beside her bed, half asleep in my chair, when I heard her voice, barely a whisper. "Dad?" I grabbed her hand. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm right here." Her eyes opened slowly. She looked confused, disoriented. "What? Where am I?" "You're in the hospital. You're going to be okay." She blinked, and I saw memory flooding back into her eyes. Horror, fear, Marcus. They pushed me. "Dad, they pushed me off the yacht." "I know. I saw it. I'm taking care of it." "The baby," she started crying, her hand moving to her stomach. "Is the baby?" I couldn't answer, couldn't find the words. She saw it in my face. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." The monitors started beeping. Nurses rushed in. I was ushered out while they sedated her, calmed her down. Through the window, I watched my daughter sob, and something final hardened inside my chest. Thomas called that evening. I talked to the medical examiner. He's willing to go on record. He says Charles Whitmore's first wife had defensive wounds on her arms, bruises consistent with being grabbed and shaken. The head trauma didn't match a fall. It matched being struck and then pushed. Jesus, there's more. I found someone else, a woman named Patricia Hammond. She was Whitmore's campaign manager 15 years ago. She filed a police report claiming he assaulted her. The report disappeared. She was paid $200,000 and signed an NDA. Can she testify? If we can break the NDA. And I found out something else, Robert. Marcus has a trust fund worth $40 million. It vests when he turns 36 next year. But there's a clause. If he's married, his wife is entitled to half in case of divorce. Understanding hit me like cold water. Emily found out she was pregnant, told him that morning. And suddenly, he's looking at losing $20 million. More if she gets custody of the kid. So they decided to solve the problem. That's what I think. But proving it is another matter. They'll say it was an accident, a tragic misunderstanding. They've got lawyers, money, political connections. We need more. What do we need? We need to make Senator Whitmore nervous. Nervous enough to make a mistake. Thomas came to Boston the next day. We sat in a hospital cafeteria that smelled of bad coffee and antiseptic, and he laid out his plan. I've been making calls, he said, talking to old contacts, journalists I trust. I've given them background information about Senator Whitmore's first wife's death, about Patricia Hammond, about some questionable financial dealings I found in his campaign records. What kind of financial dealings? The kind that involve offshore accounts and donations that exceed legal limits. Nothing concrete yet, but enough to make people curious. Enough to start asking questions. When? Tomorrow. The Boston Globe is running a story. Questions surround Senator Whitmore's past. It's not an accusation, just questions. But it'll get attention. He'll know it came from us. Let him know. I want him scared. Scared people make mistakes. The story ran the next morning. I watched the news coverage from Emily's room. She was awake now, lucid but devastated. She held my hand as we watched Senator Whitmore give a press conference, his face grave, his voice measured. These allegations are completely baseless, he said. My first wife's death was a tragic accident, investigated thoroughly by local authorities. I'm saddened that someone would try to use my family's pain for political purposes. As for the recent incident involving my daughter-in-law, we are cooperating fully with the Coast Guard investigation. It was a horrible accident, and our hearts go out to Emily and her father during this difficult time. He was good, calm, sympathetic, believable. For a moment, I wondered if we had any chance at all. Then Thomas called. Turn on Channel 7, now. I found the channel. A press conference was starting. A woman I didn't recognize stood at a podium, her hands shaking slightly. My name is Patricia Hammond, she said. 15 years ago, I worked as campaign manager for then State Senator Charles Whitmore. During that time, he sexually assaulted me. When I reported it to police, my complaint disappeared. I was paid money to stay quiet and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Today, with the help of legal counsel, I am breaking that agreement. Senator Whitmore is a dangerous man who has used his power and wealth to silence his victims for decades. I am here to say, no more. The cafeteria went quiet. Everyone was watching. My phone buzzed. Thomas again. That's not all. I found 3 more women. They're all coming forward. And I found something else, Robert. Financial records showing Marcus had been researching ways to break prenuptial agreements 3 weeks before your daughter told him about the pregnancy. He knew she was trying to get pregnant. He was already planning how to get rid of her if it happened. Can you prove that? His search history, his lawyer's bills, emails, all of it. And here's the best part. I found out who was on the yacht that night. One of the guests was a retired Coast Guard captain. I spoke to him this morning. He saw the whole thing. He's willing to testify that he saw Marcus and Senator Whitmore deliberately push Emily. My hands started shaking. Why didn't he say something before? He tried. The Whitmores' lawyers got to him first, told him he was mistaken, that he'd been drinking. But now, with everything else coming out, he's ready to tell the truth. Over the next week, everything unraveled for the Whitmores. The FBI opened an investigation into Senator Whitmore's campaign finances. The Massachusetts State Police reopened the investigation into his first wife's death. Marcus was arrested and charged with attempted murder, assault, and reckless endangerment. Senator Whitmore held one more press conference. This time, his hands shook, his voice cracked. He denied everything, called it a conspiracy, blamed political enemies. Nobody believed him. I sat with Emily and watched it all happen. She was getting stronger every day, physically at least. Emotionally, she was destroyed. She'd lost her baby, her marriage, her trust in people. She cried a lot, didn't talk much. "I should have listened to you," she said one evening. "You never trusted them. You wanted to believe in love. That's not wrong." It almost killed me, but it didn't. You're alive, you're strong, and they're going to pay for what they did. The trial took 8 months. I sat in that courtroom every single day, watching Marcus squirm in his seat while witness after witness testified against him. The retired Coast Guard captain, other guests from the yacht who'd heard Marcus's threats earlier in the evening, financial experts who laid out the trust fund motive, medical examiners who explained how Emily could have died from hypothermia and drowning. Marcus's lawyers tried everything. They claimed Emily had jumped, that it was a suicide attempt. They claimed she'd climbed on the railing herself and fallen accidentally. They painted her as emotionally unstable, manipulative, a gold digger who'd trapped their client with a fake pregnancy. Emily sat through all of it with quiet dignity. When she finally took the stand and told her story, there wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Senator Whitmore's trial came next. Thomas had gathered enough evidence to charge him with first-degree murder in his first wife's death, conspiracy to commit murder in Emily's case, and multiple counts of obstruction of justice. That trial took longer, 14 months, but the result was the same. Guilty. I was there when they read the verdict. I watched Charles Whitmore's face as the words sank in. He'd probably never lost anything in his life before, never faced consequences, never been told no by anyone who mattered. He looked across the courtroom and found me in the gallery. Our eyes met. I didn't smile, didn't gloat. I just looked at him, and I hoped he understood. This was what happened when you hurt someone's child. 2 years have passed since that night on the yacht. Emily is doing better. Not great, but better. She sold her wedding ring, donated the money to a charity for domestic violence victims. She went back to school, got her master's degree in landscape architecture. She's designing parks now, creating beautiful spaces where children can play safely. She doesn't date, says she's not ready, might never be ready. I don't push. She's 28 years old, and she's been through enough. She'll heal on her own schedule. Thomas and I talk regularly now. We repaired what was broken between us. Turns out almost losing someone you love puts petty arguments in perspective. He's writing a book about the case. Says it's going to be called The Senator's Secrets: How Power Corrupts. He asked if I wanted to co-author it. I declined. I don't need to tell this story over and over. I lived it once. That's enough. Marcus Whitmore is serving 30 years in a federal prison. Senator Charles Whitmore got life without parole for his first wife's murder. Their appeals have all failed. Sometimes Emily asks me if I think what we did was revenge or justice. I tell her I think it's both, and I think that's okay. Because here's what I learned. Quiet men aren't weak men. For decades, I'd been quiet, peaceful, accommodating. I let things slide, avoided conflict, didn't make waves. People like the Whitmores counted on that. They counted on people like me looking away, staying silent, being afraid. But they forgot something important. Quiet doesn't mean powerless. It just means patient. And patience, when combined with determination and truth, is the most powerful weapon in the world. Emily and I have dinner every Sunday now. We don't talk about Marcus or his father. We don't talk about that night on the yacht. We talk about her projects, about the garden she's designing for a children's hospital, about the future. Last Sunday, she told me she's thinking about starting to date again. Not seriously, just coffee with a colleague from work, a landscape designer who seems kind. "What do you think?" she asked. I looked at my daughter, this strong, resilient woman who'd survived what should have killed her, and I felt something I hadn't felt in 2 years. Hope. "I think you should trust your instincts," I said. "And I think you should know that I'm always here, watching, protecting." She smiled. "I know, Dad. I know. The truth is, I'll never stop watching, never stop protecting. That's what fathers do. We build things, homes, careers, families, and when someone tries to destroy what we've built, we don't just get angry. We get even. The Whitmores thought they could throw my daughter away like trash and face no consequences. They thought their money and power made them untouchable. They were wrong. Sometimes the people you underestimate are the most dangerous. The quiet architect who designs buildings learned something over 40 years. When you understand structures, you understand how they fail, how to find the weak points, how to bring everything crashing down. I built my life on solid foundations. The Whitmores built theirs on lies, violence, and arrogance. In the end, only one structure was left standing. That's the story of how a quiet man ended two powerful men. I did it with patience, with help from my brother, and with the one weapon they never expected, the truth. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe to Gilded Vengeance. Leave a comment below about what you think. Was it justice or revenge? And remember, never underestimate the quiet ones. We're not weak. We're just waiting for the right moment. Thank you for listening. I'll see you in the next story.